I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero. And they found you amusing for a while, the people of this city. But the one thing they love more than a hero is to see a hero fail, fall, die trying. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Why bother?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of Hindsight. I am here with my brother, Bryce. You can call me Tyreek, Prince, Awkwardly Animated, whatever you want to call. We're going to be talking about Spider-Man this episode.
The best superhero.
Yep, it is Spider-Man 2 release week. It's almost time for the game of all time to come out. But today's episode isn't necessarily about the game per se. We're going to talk about the game, of course, but it's mainly about Spider-Man and the legacy of Spider-Man, the character, our relationship with it, how it, ties to us, why the character is so special and meaningful to us. Because Spider-Man has always been a character that I've noticed seems to resonate with a lot of people of all different ilks, any walk of life. They all have, an attachment to Spider-Man. And I think it's because somehow, some ways, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, is that the other guy?
Yeah,
I'm not
Steve
sure.
Ditko. There's a few other people too that like. I remember Steve Ditko did like a lot of the art. I think he's one of the people who came up with,
Co-created.
yeah, I can't remember if it was him or like Jack Kirby or like some of the other people, but like Spider-Man is God, he's the best superhero. I'm dying on that hill. I don't care.
Yeah. Somehow they've crafted the most relatable superhero character. I think it's safe to say that. I can't think of any other character that resonates with as many people, as Spider-Man. So we're just gonna start at the very beginning. What is your from that you can recall your introduction to this character? When do you think was the first time you ever saw the character of Spider-Man? I think I know when was the first time I saw it, but I want to see what's your earliest memory.
Okay, so earliest memory, right? This isn't most prominent memory. This isn't like favorite memory, anything like that. The earliest memory I have of Spider-Man is not the movie, surprisingly. It's the movie tie-in game, like the very first one where like you couldn't touch the ground. He's doing like that same swing animation where it's like one arm, then the next arm, then the next arm. And I remember that. I remember Tobey Maguire's like not so great video game voice acting. Like it's like one line where he's like, "Oh, like I haven't seen that one before," like something like that. I remember like the bank level. I remember it was. I remember like a lot about that game. It wasn't particularly good, but like
Hmm.
it was a game.
It was a game. Okay, interesting. I feel like it might be the same for me, but I'm not sure. I feel like I saw the movie first, but I'm not entirely sure. I do remember vividly falling in love with the movie and watching it on repeat over and over and over again. And then once we get into our tier list for the movies, because I haven't looked at yours, we'll go into more detail as to why we put certain movies above others and which movie, in our opinion, is the best one or is our favorite. But I do have so many memories. One in particular, I don't remember what grade I was in, but there was a grade where we had just got out of school. It was like the beginning of summer around that time. And I don't know if this was around the release of one of the sequels, if it was the second one or the third one, but I do recall getting a present, and it was one of the old figures of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and you also had the spray can web shooters, and I thought it was the sickest thing ever. Running around the yard, spraying these shooter things like on each other. I think that was like one of my earliest like memories because back then I rarely got like toys that often. Like I didn't really. I can't recall too many toys that I look fondly on, but the Spider-Man web shooters and the figure and the little car he came with, those things I remember vividly. Those are definitely a highlight, core memory, if you will. But yeah, I think my first time seeing the character was in the Tobey Maguire movie. Uh, I gotta ask you though, in regards to since you recall it being the video game first, what do you think was your thoughts? Like just based off of that, without knowing about the movie or where this character comes from. Obviously, you don't know this is a comic book character. You just think it's a video game character at this point. So, like, what was your first impression? Like, were you immediately like in love with what you were seeing, or you were just like, oh, look at this goofy thing I'm playing?
So initially, right, I was like, man, that swinging animation is dumb. And to this day, I can now say with absolute confidence that swinging animation is dumb. The one arm to the like he's like in a jungle gym. It looks weird, but I remember initially like, man, I really don't like this suit. I really wish I could walk on the ground. All that, and then when you get like the actual like more iconic Tobey Maguire like Spider-Man suit, not the wrestling suit, then I was like, okay, yeah, this suit's pretty cool. But yeah, no, originally like I remember the his like punching animations looking like kind of goofy. Or actually I might be getting that mixed up with Ultimate Spider-Man, but no, initially I was just like, man, this is kind of a little goofy. It's a little silly. Don't know how I feel about this. Like it was fun at the time, but I was like, man, this is no, I don't know. I remember like not being able to get past I think like the second or third level. So like I never beat the game because it was
Yeah, that's
horrible.
like how all games were at the time. It's like, oh, I can't get past this part. Guess I'm not playing the game anymore. I guess I'm done. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, okay, that's interesting. So since my earliest experience that I can recall was the movie, my first impression, I do remember because when you're younger, it is really hard for a lot of live action films to get your attention, right? Uh, but something about the opening credits of Spider-Man, the very first one, I was drawn in immediately. It's the music, it's the just the title cards and the animation. Like we don't really get credit sequences like that anymore. But a lot of older movies back then would just go crazy and super flashy for all their intro, cinematics and whatnot. So I just remember hearing the music. I think Danny Elfman did the soundtrack for the first movie and the second one. His orchestration, in my opinion, I think that's the best superhero theme like music ever. I honestly, it's Responsibility. I think that's the name of the track. That's one of my favorite like soundtracks. Period. In film.
That is a really really like tough soundtrack to beat. It's like I can't obviously like vocalize like the soundtrack. Like, I can't like do it with my mouth or anything like that. But like that is like iconic. Like to this day, I can still like hear the theme in my head. Like
Hmm.
it's
It's
that and
so
like
iconic.
the black theme or the symbiote theme. Oh my, like that too is like that trilogy had some really good music.
Yeah, they cooked. They definitely cooked. So I do remember my first impression being, okay, you got me through the title sequence. What's this movie gonna offer me that SpongeBob on channel 62 or no 63 can't offer me, right? So I'm watching this thing, and uh, immediately you're thinking, this Peter Parker guy is like such a doof. Like this, look at this nerd. Like this is our main character. This is what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, he's a
So
schmuck.
exactly. I mean, you see him. He's late for the bus, and everyone, even the bus driver, doesn't respect this guy. So I'm like, okay. Like as a kid, I'm thinking the bus driver respects me. If he doesn't respect this guy must truly be like top tier loser, right? So
Yeah.
throughout the movie, you start getting a lot more scenes, I guess, developing, the character more. You see his dynamic with, his aunt and his uncle. And the movie kind of gets its hooks in you and catches you off guard because you got to keep in mind, from a kid's perspective, you don't know his origin or, how things get to where they are. So when you see what happens to his uncle, uh, and this is also one of the first few movies I think I've seen that had death as a thematic presence in the movie. I don't think I was seeing any movies around that time that had that. So when I saw the scene with his uncle dying and he's like, bawling his eyes out and he tells him the iconic line, I just remember being very like kind of washed over with like emotion of like, oh man, this is like like from that moment on, you really feel, more of a connection to Peter. You really feel for this guy. He's going through so much hardship and so much, things just not going right in his life. So you're really rooting for the guy, for things to go well. Um, so when you saw the movie, because I imagine we watched it around the same time, it couldn't have been, far apart. I think we literally watched everything around the same time together. So do you recall how that made you feel particularly? Because I know you were even younger than me, so I have no idea if you even could comprehend, the fact that, oh, like this death, like what it meant to him and how that was affecting him in the movie.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be 1,000,000% honest with you. Don't remember any emotional depth or anything like that at the time. I was just, man, that sucks. So when do we see Spider-Man? I was just, so when do I see Guy flipping around on web? There was no, oh my God, I wonder how this is gonna affect. And oh man, I can't imagine. It was just, nah, man.
That's
Cut to
fair.
the Spider-Man part.
No, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. I wouldn't even expect you to be able to even comprehend that around your age, because I think I'm gonna assume we saw the movie fairly late, like when it was on DVD. So
'Cause
I'm gonna say we
when did the
watched it
movie
maybe in
come out?
I think it came out in 2002. So let's assume we watched it in 2003 or four. That would make you
I was
like,
2. I
yeah,
was 2.
you basically had no thought. You had
I
no
was just
no
sitting there.
comprehensive thought.
He just starts clapping. Why are you clapping when he's dead? It's
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Um, so the movie specifically is it really hits in a lot of beats that it gives it more of a homey nostalgia feeling to me. And I don't know if that's necessarily the movie doing that or if it's just when I watched it. Because you watch a lot of movies or shows around a certain very integral, important part of your life where it becomes a comfort thing. You'll watch a movie when you're in your youth, and then 30 years later, you always look back on that movie very fondly because of what it meant to you at the time. And I think this movie definitely fits into that, category, that bracket of time where I just look back on it really fondly, and every now and then I'm watch, the OG 2002 Spider-Man, right? So, for you, I haven't looked at your list yet, but for you, I got to ask, which out of the films is your favorite Spider-Man? Not a movie, but
yeah,
which
not movie, but
actor?
favorite actor. Are we including every movie or just live action?
We're gonna do every movie because
Okay,
our animated
so
ones count as well.
yeah, okay, so if we're going animated movies and we're going off my favorite Peter is Peter B. Parker, just because of I'm gonna keep this a little brief because there's a lot we're gonna touch on, but I I like how Peter B is very different from every other Peter we've been getting in every other form of media. There's one video that broke it down way better than I ever could, where he explained it that Peter B is essentially what Marvel had been doing to Spider-Man up until this point, but like as a character, because they weren't letting Spider-Man grow. They weren't letting him get married. They weren't letting him become past like a college
Yeah.
student because then he's not relatable anymore. He's an adult. He's old. He's weird. And Peter
Weird.
B, yeah, like that's how some people like legitimately view him. And like
Age
you
makes
can
you
even
weird.
yeah, no, you can like I swear to God, if you go into a lot of like places where they're talking about Spider-Man, you'll see where they're like they completely misunderstand his character. Like one of the biggest things people say is he's not Spider-Man if he doesn't suffer, and that's just wrong. Like that's just what Marvel's been doing to him. They can't let him be happy for 2 seconds, and it's so depressing. And that's why I like Peter B because he's all of that, but his character arc is growing past that and moving into a new stage of life and being happy, and that's awesome, and I love it. But
That's a
no,
great
it's
answer. That's a
yeah,
great
no,
answer.
I hate what they've been doing to him.
Yeah, I like Peter B a lot. I still it's like I was saying earlier with the movie. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is my favorite. Not necessarily because Sam Raimi did anything particularly better than the ones that came after. It's just something about those movies and that, being the first one. It's like I'll always resonate towards that one more. Whenever there's, anything. I mean, like, if something is your first exposure to a character, that's going to be your version, right? And then whenever something comes after the fact, they're just going to feel like imitations of that or iterations of what you saw, even if the one you saw might not be the first. So there's a lot of people that really like the Andrew Garfield because that was their first, and they look back at the Toby one and they don't understand how anyone could like him, right? So I really like how this character, while certain key things remain the same, we have all these different interpretations that hit and resonate differently for different people, and I think that's a part of the magic. That's a part of what makes the character of Spider-Man specifically so uh global. Everyone likes Spider-Man. I mean, you'd be hard
Yeah.
pressed to find someone that does not like the character Spider-Man.
And one thing actually to touch on that about how the different iterations and like the different like versions of or like the different takes of the character can be so interesting is with Sam Raimi's in particular. Like when you really like break down how his version of Spider-Man works, it's actually like terrifying. Like I forget where I saw this. I don't know if this was like concept art for the movie or what, but I remember seeing a diagram like breaking down his powers and like how the webs come out and there's holes like in his wrist and like it was breaking it down like to that level or even like how he like clings to walls. It's like, oh, there's like these fibers on his like fingers. They even showed it in the movie like the weird like hook things
Yeah,
in his
I
finger.
love that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
that's
the body
terrifying when you
horror.
think of, yeah,
I
I was like, that's
love it.
gross, but like it's awesome too. It's like, yeah, that's a really neat take on the character. Yeah, no, he got bit by that spider and it was radioactive. This did make him gross to an extent.
That's really neat. Yeah, I do like how each, I guess, interpretation, they take a little bit of liberties with the source material in ways that you wouldn't expect. I mean, like, there's really no reason for them to change his skills like that, but I think it works for the world that Sam Raimi was going for, and same thing for Mark Webb's version. I think, and even Tom Holland's version. I think the way they all end up in the same place is uniquely well done. I don't think there's one way, that Peter has to be in terms of how he does his powers, how he gets his powers. There's just a lot of variables there. Now, I want to talk about Miles specifically because mainly because none of us said that he was our favorite, but Miles is a more recent character, so a lot of people are, especially younger people, are seeing him as the first for them, or seeing him as the one that truly resonates with them more. And I do definitely think that if Miles was more prevalent, or like if he existed around the time we were growing up, he would probably be one of our top favorites. Like we would see him just as highly. But the time difference, Miles is fairly new. We're just now seeing a ton of media pushing this character. So I want to get your, I guess, perspective on Miles. Which interpretation so far has been your favorite? I know there's the one in the animated series. There's the video games, Insomniac, and then of course the movies. So with Miles specifically, how do you think he stocks up? Is Miles Morales, is he worthy of the title of Spider-Man? Because apparently, a lot of people out there, they don't think he's Spider-Man for some reason.
I'm gonna get this out of the way now. For everybody who says he's not Spider-Man, you have to come up with names for every Spider-Man that's just Spider-Man with a subtitle. So you can't say, oh, you can't say, oh, Miles isn't Spider-Man. His name's Spidey or Kid Arachnid or all these other dumb. Stop, okay? They're all really bad names. If you come up with a good one, sure, let it stick. But if he's not Spider-Man, then Spider-Man Noir isn't Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2099 isn't Spider-Man. Like, Ben Riley wouldn't be Spider-Man then. I mean, because he's sensational Spider-Man. No, but then no, that's just a title.
The thing
You
is, no
can't
one
like pick and
calls them
choose.
this. No one
Yeah, you
calls
can't.
them
They're
these
all
things.
Spider-Man, and that's the whole point of Spider-Man is everyone's Spider-Man, and anyone can wear the mask. That's literally the whole point of Spider-Man. Anyone can be him. So it's so stupid when people do that with Miles. My favorite interpretation though is it's weird. So I like a mix of I like what the movies have been doing, the Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse. I really like that version of Miles. But I also really like Insomniac's take on him, of him being like a kind of like goofy, nerdy, and like, like that more traditional like kid. Because the Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, like he seems like sure he has like a few awkward moments, but he seems like too cool, like he seems
He's too cool.
like he seems
Hey,
too
he's going.
cool.
Nah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna do my own thing. That's all.
yeah, he's got the exaggerated swagger of a black teen.
Yeah.
But no,
Okay.
like if
No,
you
go
look
ahead.
at like Into the Spider, yeah, I was gonna say if you look at like Into the Spider-Verse, for example, before he gets his powers, he's like running down the street, dapping people up. Everybody knows his names. He's like putting tags everywhere. He seems like just a cool kid, and like yeah, that's that's fair. But like actually, now I think about it, I actually kind of prefer that because Peter is always depicted as the more awkward one. I don't know. Like Miles is just I like his character. Let me leave it at that. I like
I
his
see both.
character.
I gotta be honest. I'm on the side of the Insomniac Miles being coming across a little corny. I do gotta be honest. I like him still, but he definitely feels written nowhere near as good as the
It's like
movie version. He's just
endearing though.
very comically like too kid friendly, too I don't know what's the best word to use it, but I
It's
just
like
don't like how
TikTok cringe.
quippy he is. I don't like it. I feel like he should be a bit more grounded and serious. But granted, that's how the whole Insomniac world is. You know, all the characters act this way, so it's not that jarring. It's really a me thing. I have no issue with it. Like I don't want them to actively change it. I think it works for what they're trying to do. But yeah, for me, the Into the Spider Verse and Across the Spider Verse, I think that Miles is definitely like amazing. Like that is to me that is the Miles. That is the blueprint for me going forward as far as a future interpretation. I'll be always comparing to that one because that one is they definitely did something really great with that one. So yeah, that's interesting.
Real quick. There's one thing about the quipping and cringiness. Like the quippiness is like in my eyes inherent to Spider-Man. Like he's constantly telling like terrible jokes or like even some pretty good ones. But like with the Insomniac thing, that like he has a lot of like really cringy lines. I feel like they're like that intentionally. Like in Miles Morales when you like grab somebody's weapon and throw it at him, he's like, "Got hands? Catch." I'm like, "Oh, that's not
Yeah,
good." Or
yeah,
like even when he
it's
stops
really
crimes,
bad.
he's like, "Oh, don't take that, evildoers." He goes, "Look, just don't do it again, all right?" Like I like that, like him being kind of weird and like he's like coming into his own. So he's like still not super confident with this stuff. He's still not sure how to go about it. And I feel like that's something the second game's probably gonna do is
Yeah,
like have
yeah,
better dialogue.
yeah. I think they'll definitely nail it this time around. Because I have my own gripes and issues with the Miles Morales game, but I think overall that is a good interpretation of the character. I do enjoy it. Just wish he was a little less cornball. So
It adds.
we're gonna get into these tier lists here for the movies. So I sent you mine. You sent me yours. So I'm gonna pull.
You
Who
want
do
to
you want to
start
go
with?
first? What do you want to do here?
We can start with mine because
Okay.
I also so I am really bad at following directions, and so you told me excluding Venom and Morbius, and I still rated Venom and Morbius. And so I can explain those if you want, but otherwise we could just ignore them.
We can. Hmm. I don't know.
'Cause,
If you want to get into those movies, you can get into those
well,
movies.
I was gonna say I've got nothing to say about Morbius. It's Morbius, but
Yeah.
the
Fair.
two Venom movies, I've got a little bit to say because Venom is I think
Okay.
my
Plus,
favorites.
Venom's coming up
One.
in this next game, so it's a
Yeah,
very trendy topic right now. So
very
I'm gonna
trendy.
have the tier list on the screen in the actual episode, so people can look at it. What we're looking at here is in your S tier. I guess we should start from the bottom. So at the very bottom, he has Morbius, and it's a tier of its own because that movie is in a caliber of its own. It's
Yeah,
quite legendary and infamous.
the only movie that a community got the company to release a second time because they were clowning on it so hard. The company said, "Oh, they really liked it. Released it again." Hey, wait a minute. We lost
Yep.
even more money.
Sony's
Uh,
impudence there showing itself.
uh,
Then we have in D tier, you have Venom and Let There Be Carnage. So both of them tying for the dog shit tier. Then we have C, you have both Amazing Spider Man movies. So you rank them about the same. And in B tier, we got Spider Man 3, Far From Home, and Homecoming. A tier, we have the original Tobey Maguire Spider Man, Spider Man 2, No Way Home, and then in S tier we have both Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. So I'll let you go ahead and start wherever you want to start, break it down,
okay.
and explain why you did what you did.
So I'm gonna start where it's easiest. I'm gonna climb the list. So obviously Morbius, no explanation. For Venom, Venom 1, it's not a bad movie, but it's not great. I wish they did Venom better, but I was like, for what they're doing, fine, right? Nothing bad. There's some decent visuals, some decent fights, some really bad visuals and some really bad fights, some really questionable decisions. Like, why would you reveal Venom in Eddie's reflection in one scene just to do a much better reveal, like minutes later, with the whole bike scene? So, like, there's weird decisions. I don't like how they kind of changed the symbiote's origins, because in the comics, I'm pretty sure Riot and
Excuse
all
me,
these
sir.
other
Is symbiote?
right, symbiote. Yeah, no. I don't like how they change certain things, but hey, you know what? If you're gonna change it, make your own interpretation. Fine. I don't like. Maybe this is because Ultimate Spider-Man was one of my first introductions to Venom, but seeing Venom be reduced to like a goofball kind of hurt. I mean, I guess that is like what he is in the comics to
Yeah,
an
he is a
extent,
bit
like depending
goofy,
on certain
but
run. Yeah,
not
but
that
like,
goofy.
yeah, no, I was gonna say because so background. This is a minor tangent. In Ultimate Spider-Man, they portrayed Venom as a menace. This
Sinister.
in the game, this man, he says like a total of like 10 full sentences the entire game. He says a bunch of like he says like a few words, and it's just feed, hungry, kill you, mine. Like he's very animalistic. In the first mission you play is Peter fighting Venom. Spoilers for whoever hasn't played or seen Ultimate Spider-Man. It's Peter fighting Venom on the football field in the rain. Really cool fight with like comic panels popping up. And the first mission you play as Venom, you kill the kid from Spider-Man 2 with the balloon. You beat up a bunch of gang members. You throw Wolverine's bike through a bar, and then you beat Wolverine convincingly. Like you knock Wolverine out. And then it goes, okay, let's go look at Spider-Man for a bit. So like going from that to Venom being scared to fight a symbiote who in the comics isn't even one of the toughest symbiotes like
No,
Venom's ever
no, but you
fought.
don't understand that. That's a red one.
No. I'm not
Oh,
talking about Carnage. I'm talking about
you're talking
Riot.
about the bad dude at the end of bro.
Yeah, and then so and here's what makes Riot so dumb. In the comics, Venom not only beats Riot, but he beats four other symbiotes. It's I think Lasher, Phage, Mania, and one other one. Like they're all a bunch of like gobbers in the grand scheme of things, and they all merge into a symbiote called Hybrid. And Venom beats them too, if I remember right. I might be misremembering, those comics are a while ago. So to make Venom struggle against the and not only that, but like why pick Riot when it's like it's two symbiotes that are both just black goo? Like it makes the fights look weird. So then I ranked Let There Be Carnage a little worse. Some of these I think I
Oh,
meant to
okay,
put
you have them in
Spider-Man.
order, I see.
Yeah, I
So
think I
left to
meant to
right
put
order.
Spider-Man 2 in the top of A tier, but I mean Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 1 and Homecoming, or not No Homecoming, No Way Home, they're all really good in my eyes. Homecoming a little less so now that I think about it, but whatever. Let There Be Carnage, it's basically the same as the first Venom, like in terms of issues. I think there's one much bigger issue, which is the final fight between Venom and Carnage. Like it's fine for the most part, kind of, but that line of "We are the lethal protector" that was so forced and so it immediately made it worse in my eyes. Like Carnage is cool. I like his design. He has some decent scenes, but then like there's some questionable details in the movie. Like, oh, he's killing all these guards, but then the inmates are treating him like a champion and a hero, and he's just going with them. Like, no, Carnage kills everything. That's his thing. He doesn't care. He literally is.
Mm.
Anyway, both not great movies, right?
Yeah.
So Amazing Spider-Man 2, not gonna lie to you, the writing in both is kind of iffy, and I think Amazing Spider-Man 1's writing is actually a little better up until like a
I
certain
agree.
point. But I ranked 2 a little higher just because I like the suit way more. Like the first suit works for that movie, and like him being more of like a predatory Spider-Man, like he's going around hunting people almost, like he's like
Yeah,
beats
he
up that
looks
one
it,
thug.
it seems more vigilante-esque.
Yeah, and he even like tells that one like thug guy like he beats up or that he thinks is his killer. When he looked for the tattoo, he straight up tells him like, "Oh man, if you were the guy I was looking for, this would have been a lot worse." Like he basically
Yeah.
implies he's gonna kill him. So like I think I probably should switch those. But like I do like the TASM 2 suit more. I like some of the scenes in TASM 2, like the scene with Electro, and Electro's like beating him across the electric like poles or whatever, and it's like playing Itsy Bitsy Spider. That was really cool. The scene in Times Square was pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are both pretty equal in my eyes. They have like both unique flaws, unique good things. Homecoming. I wish Homecoming was better, and the main thing holding it back for me is all the Iron Man stuff. I wish they didn't have Peter tied so heavily high. I know that's like the biggest thing, but I wish, like, if you take Iron Man out, and it's like it's not Peter trying to live up to Iron Man, but Peter just trying to find himself as Spider-Man. It's a really good movie. Like, I love the scene where he's buried in the rubble, he's begging for
Mm-hmm.
help, and then he
Yeah.
realizes no one's coming. I've got to do this on my own. Really good scene. Vulture as his first villain, pretty good. I think it's comic accurate too, because I think Vulture was like his first villain, or if not his first, one of his first. Really good movie. Far From Home, it's not bad. I do like it. I really like the um. Now I'm struggling to think of things I like about it. Great. No, I'm
That
kidding.
Mysterio
I like.
scene's cool.
Yeah, the Mysterio scene's cool. I like when he's building the new suit, even though the suit kind of doesn't look too different. It's just red and black with more lines. But listen, whatever. It is an improvement. I do like the red and black over the red and really dark blue. It was a weird choice. Or not really dark blue, really light blue with black lines. Um, because fun fact, the Homecoming suit and I think the Civil War suit are different for some reason. They made the blue lighter. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think they were just made at different times with different people involved, so it just
Gotcha.
certain things didn't sync up properly.
But actually, no. The thing that pushes Homecoming below, or rather, Far From Home above Homecoming to me, is how well they did Mysterio. I really liked Quentin Beck's character. I really loved his illusions. I loved all that. I kind of wish they did more with him. And
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3 goes without saying. It's a really good movie. I just wish they did Venom a lot better.
I'm so
And I wish
glad you
they-
have it this
Yeah.
high. A lot of people would say this movie is dog shit. But
No,
I think
it's really good.
I think it actually is pretty good. And even the stuff that is dog shit is like, if you watch it with a certain lens, it's kind of heat. Like
Yeah, no.
the meme stuff in this movie enhances it tenfold. This movie ages like fine wine.
No, honestly, it should be in a tier above S in its own, purely because of the scene of Eddie Brock being such a hater. He goes to church to pray that Peter Parker
Yep.
dies. He doesn't know he's Spider-Man. It's like, yeah, I faked getting pictures of Spider-Man and this guy didn't. Well, I mean, he kind of did, but he doesn't know that. And I got fired. So I don't want him to get fired. I don't want to get my job back. I want him dead. That's like, oh my
Oh,
god.
no, dude, there's some hard lines dude, the hardest line in that movie is when he tells him, he says, "You want forgiveness? Get religion." That shit was hard, bro. I was
Or
like, "Oh, he's too cold, bro."
Or like when Harry finds out he killed his dad, he goes, "Oh, look at little Goblin Jr. Gonna cry." It's like, dude, what?
Stings, doesn't it?
And he throws the pumpkin bomb, and he just webs it and
Walks
throws
off?
it back.
Bro.
Yeah, no, he throws it back and kills his best friend as far as he knows. Like, oh my god.
Bro,
But
he
no,
was not playing, bro.
or like I really like their portrayal of like Peter losing himself to the suit, because yeah, all the scenes with Peter in like the all black look kind of goofy, but him fighting Sandman and just grinding his face into a train,
Yeah.
that is like such a violent thing when you think about it, because like if he did that to anybody else, they're just dead. He
Yeah.
did it to Goblin, dead. If he did it to like Otto, dead. But he just happened to get lucky with Sandman. And the things about the movie, or at least the production, also make it really like good to me, because like finding out that Sam Raimi wanted to do a more sympathetic villain like he did with the last two, and Sony basically forced him, not do Venom, and he's like fine, and he had to find a way to work Venom into it and have it be sympathetic. That was really cool. But no, top of B tier for me. It's better than the other two, the Tom Holland movies.
Right.
Even though they have better CGI and stuff. Like, I don't know. There's something about the score that just makes it like the black theme, or I keep calling it the black theme. Yeah. That scene where he's like looking at his reflection in the thing. He's like looking at it. It's like, oh my god. And like I will say that the symbiote suit in this movie isn't great. It's just a black recolor with like
I like it.
No,
It's
I mean,
emo.
it's
It's emo as hell, but I like it.
Yeah, it's not bad. I wish they would have done something like, because I know this came out after the fact, but Spectacular Spider-Man, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, does the symbiote really well, where when he first gets it, it's a recolor, but over the course it becomes a comic accurate like black suit the more like longer he has it on, and that was really cool. But I mean, that's proactive, or like I can't expect something that came out before to do something after did, so
Yeah.
I'll give it a pass. Spider-Man 1 goes without saying. It's it's like a foundation. It's a building block. It's really solid movie even to this day. Um, this doesn't need explanation. It's Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
No Way Home. I rank it a little higher than 1, but if you take all the nostalgia out of it, it's like C tier because this movie relies too heavily on nostalgia. If you don't know who Toby or Andrew are, this entire movie like doesn't make sense. You're just like, who's Green Goblin? Like, why would I care
I
about
agree.
this Green Goblin and this Otto and this Sandman and this Electro and this Lizard? Like, if you haven't seen every other Spider-Man movie, it literally doesn't if you came and you were only watching the MCU, this movie is just like a bunch of people you don't know showing up to resolve like plots from other stories you don't know about.
Yeah, it's the Endgame effect, right? You
Yeah,
can't bring a normal audience member into watching Endgame and they could have understanding of what the hell is going on in the whole movie. It's impossible. So it's one of those type of movies where if you did the homework and you have the attachment, it's something that you would never experience in a million years or think would ever exist, but it gives it all to you in 2.5 hours, and it's just the greatest thing ever. Like it's magic. It's truly magic.
yeah. I will say, take all this the nostalgia out, and the scene of Peter beating Green Goblin at like the end, that was like still really good. Like seeing like that's what I want more of. I want more unique Spider-Man stories and more unique Spider-Man takes rather. And so seeing a more angry and like vicious Peter, even if it was only for like a few minutes, was great. I love that. And Spider-Man 2 again goes without saying. It's the sequel to Spider-Man 1. Spider-Man 1 and 2 are like peak Spider-Man movies. This isn't debate, you know, and I really like I said, without nostalgia, it's literally Spider-Man 1 and 2 are an A tier, like no debate. But No Way Home, because of all that nostalgia and all that buildup and all that resolving plot threads and even like the scene where Andrew's like falling to catch MJ and is like redeeming himself in his eyes, all those little things add up and like make it just better than Spider-Man 1 in my eyes. But like take all that out and it's C tier.
That's fair.
And lastly, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. I'm gonna talk about these two together because
Yeah,
they
makes
are
sense.
two parts of a still incomplete whole. So I love Miles's portrayal. I love his the suit in that picture, the jacket and all that. Without the jacket and everything, it's like a little empty. I do like that it's just a spray painted Peter suit, and so you can still see parts of like Peter's design in it.
Mm-hmm.
The Cross the Spider-Verse suit I feel is just too empty, just straight up too empty. It's still like a decent suit, and I still like
Yeah,
it.
I
It's not
really
like a
like the
bad suit.
Insomniac one way more.
Yeah, no, the Insomniac one is. Oh my God,
Feels more design. It feels more like a suit. What he's wearing just feels like skin tight latex with spray paint on it. Like it
Yeah,
still
like
doesn't
straight up.
feel like a suit. It just feels like it still feels like something he just threw together. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't feel
and
as
it's like if you've
official.
been Spider-Man for a year, I feel like you would have something a little more like put together. Um, Especially when you compare it to like Tobey Maguire, which I know you can't, but like Tobey Maguire, that suit you would not make that suit in like a day or like a week. You would not make like that man has metal like raised webbing all over it and like lenses and no, but uh it goes without saying. Everyone knows how amazing those two movies are. Um, but to kind of get into it a little bit, I really, really I can't stress enough how much I love the story they're telling with Miles and like really hammering home anyone can be Spider-Man, so shut up about it. Like, and then in the second movie, oh, it's all about what is canon and what can be broken, blah blah. You know, like it delves into like these
Yeah, there's a bit of
more
meta in there.
yeah, into these meta, more like direct Spider-Man topics. Not even just Spider-Man, but superhero topics. And I love that it's just calling out all those people who nitpick and care about that. It's like, look, because of you, now we have to tackle the topic of what's canon, and now they're canon events. Oh yeah, Uncle Ben always has to die. It's like because all you said it, you keep nitpicking. Oh, this Spider-Man didn't have their Uncle Ben die, so now it's like now they're really. And I hope with this trilogy, once it's done, people will be able to look at not just Spider-Man but other heroes without this rigid kind of things have to go a certain way.
I agree to an extent. I think some characters have key aspects that I would like to be retained, but I'm always open to change. That's the difference. There's a lot of people that just aren't open to it, period. They don't want to see anything touched to the sacred, original, you know, things that have to happen. Batman's parents have to die. These, things are almost religious to these people. Like, there's no changing this, right? Uh, I'm open to things changing as long as there's a reason, like actual intent behind it, right? Whereas, you get something like Velma or something where it's like,
Yeah,
what was the reason? Like,
yes,
why do we do
we
this?
made Velma.
To throw on purpose? Is that why we did this?
They said, "Hey, let's make a Scooby Doo show without Scooby Doo."
Without Scooby Doo, yeah, like why?
Not even like a changed version. Just straight up, he's not in the show. Gone.
Yeah, very strange. It's very bizarre. Okay, let's get on to my list now.
Yeah,
Let's get on.
Let me
So
let me scroll down and
yeah, there's some takes in here for sure. We're gonna start at the bottom. I didn't do the Venom movies or the Morbius movies, partly because I've only seen the first Venom movie, and I don't even really have much to say other than I think it's bad.
No, yeah, it's not great.
Venom, Let There Be Carnage, haven't watched. Morbius, haven't watched. So there you go. If you want my opinion on that, it doesn't exist. Here we go. Starting at the bottom of the list. My list is going to start in the D tier. I have The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in D tier. Reason being, in this entire movie, there are only two things that I like. One of them being the dynamic between him and Gwen, and that one scene where he helps that one kid out with his little science project and he saves him.
Yeah.
Everything outside of that, I dislike. I don't like. I don't like the portrayal of Electro. I don't like most of the scenes that have to do with Electro. I don't like the way they did Green Goblin, even though I really, really love Dane DeHaan as an actor. I remember at the time, I was like, oh my goodness, like, I loved him in Chronicle, and I'm seeing him get more work, and I'm like, oh, this dude, he's gonna be great. He's gonna go places. And sadly, he wasn't Oppenheimer, so that was good. But he sadly hasn't gotten the amount of work or recognition that I had hoped at the time. But that's besides the point. There were a lot of things in this movie that really, really disappointed me, just in terms of general story. They were trying so hard to set up a universe that they forgot, to focus on making a good movie with a good story. And I think the only thing that really works in this movie is the relationship between him and Gwen. So for that reason, all those scenes I really love. But when you add up those scenes together, that's not even 15 minutes of the whole 2.5 hour movie, or however long that movie is. So for me, the movie kind of sucks. I don't really like it. It's one of the few movies that I just would rather never rewatch. I have no reason or desire to ever watch that movie again. Aside from that one scene, I like the "For You," and that's just because I like the song. That's the only reason. I just like the song.
No, that song was overused at the point when that movie came out, and like I was like, nah, I hated that. But no, I was gonna say, to add on to one of your points, their Green Goblin design was doomed because you're coming off the heels of Sam Raimi.
The design though, I think the design was kind of cool. It's just the way he played him, I didn't like. I didn't like the way he played him.
Baring his teeth, like he
got all goofy. It was like Star Wars prequel shit. I was like, what the? This is a take.
Yeah, no. I feel like if they were gonna do Green Goblin, they should have had him be the highlight and not Electro.
I agree. I think Electro shouldn't even have been in this damn movie.
Yeah, I was like, make Electro like.
You could have done the origin to Electro, but then like
have
that be
later movie.
Yeah, later. Like I didn't need him to actually be a big part of the movie.
And then they just introduced Rhino out of nowhere.
Yeah, for no reason. Okay, so then we jump up to B tier. I don't have anything in C tier. I don't think this is none of the movies that I would put in C tier. So we have The Amazing Spider-Man. That movie I think is good. It's like a 7. It's pretty good. I like the characterization. I still have my slight nitpick. So the way you feel about Miles and the Cross and Into the Spider-Verse is kind of how I feel about Andrew Garfield's Peter. I feel like he's a little too cool. I don't buy the outcasty vibe they're trying to push. Because in the movies, you don't really, he doesn't have many friends. He doesn't really socialize as much with people at his school. But when the moment, he's talking to Gwen, he's very suave. He's a go-getter with the ladies. I don't see him as this, geeky, nerdy kid that you'd expect. So there's a aspect of it that I just don't buy, that, he's this outsider, outcast guy. I just don't see it. Dude likes to, skate, and
Yeah, he
the way he
skateboards to
dresses.
class. It's like, okay, sure,
Yeah,
you're an
like, come on
outcast.
now. Come on. There's no way.
Skateboarding through the halls. Sure, you're an outcast. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so he's a little too cool, but I don't knock the movie for that. I think overall I really do like his Spider-Man. I like his interactions with civilians and things of that nature. Whenever it happens, I think it's always really cool. One of my favorite scenes is actually from this movie, is when the cars are like falling off of the bridge, and he puts the mask on the little kid, and he's like, it's okay, you put it on, it'll give you strength. And then the kid climbs up. That scene's amazing. That's like one of the peak Spider-Man scenes. And I think Andrew Garfield has a few of those that I'm like, yeah, his Spider-Man's kind of goated. Like the actual characterization of his Spider-Man when he has the mask on, I think is really, really good. So yeah, that it's like a 7. It's okay. I like it. I enjoy it. Then we have Spider-Man Homecoming. I put that in B tier. This movie is one that over time I like less and less, which is a shame, because I think it's a really good movie. And I remember vividly because we saw it together when it first came out. And I remember leaving the movie very like high in praise. I was like, whoa, that was great. Like, that was super good. But over time, as I look back on it, there's not much in the movie that I personally love. Like, I still like, a lot of it. I think the Vulture stuff is like probably the best stuff. And like you said, I think the MCU isms in the movie are what drag it down or weigh it down over time. Do I wish they weren't in the movie? Not necessarily. I don't know why. I just feel like, oddly enough, I wish Tony was in it a little more. I feel like the problem isn't that he's in it. I think the problem is that he's not in it enough to where you feel his presence being important. It doesn't feel important in that movie as much as it should. So, because when we lose Tony, it's an even bigger deal. So I feel like he should have been in that movie a lot more. Like, I think it would have really helped to have, a scene or two where, he's actually coaching him with, saving people or something like that. Or like, showing him, what it means to be a hero, more of the ropes on that aspect. But most of the time he's doing it on his own, and Tony just comes in and says, hey, you want a new suit? I got a new suit. And then he dips out. So you don't really feel the mentorship angle as much as I would like.
Right. I was actually kind of trying to think of how to phrase this, but I feel like with Tony being there as like a mentor role, I feel like that would work maybe if, like, I don't know, like, I almost like would prefer if Uncle Ben was still in it and they just let Uncle Ben live for like 1 or 2 movies and then killed him off instead of May, because it's like, with Iron Man being there, it's like Iron Man is such a flawed character in himself, and that doesn't inherently mean he can't be a mentor figure. But it feels weird that Iron Man is like telling Peter, like, no, oh, like, I want you to be better than me. It's like, yeah, but that's not exactly a high bar to clear, man. Just like,
I don't know. I kind of disagree. I think that angle is actually great. I think here's the issue. Spider-Man serves Tony's character development way more than vice versa. Iron Man gets so much more out of the Homecoming trilogy and the relationship that's built than Tom Holland's Spider-Man does. I think that's the issue. Because when you think about, all the way through Endgame, a lot of that emotion really comes from that dynamic. And I feel like he got hard carried a lot by, Peter and, that relationship there. So I think that is the issue. I think Marvel definitely used Spider-Man to help push Tony more and make him even more of this character that you love. So instead of doing it the opposite. So I think that's actually the issue with the movie, actually. So yeah, I put it in B tier just because it's a really good movie. I would rewatch it. I enjoy, the high school aspect of it. That's one of the things that I think was always focused on less in the movies. They did it, a lot in the cartoons and stuff, but I always wish that they leaned more into the high school stuff. So I like Ned, and I like this, interpretation of MJ and stuff like that. I really like what the MCU did and their take with the school stuff, but everything outside the school stuff just felt not. It didn't hit as hard as I would have liked. So for that reason, it's in the B tier. Now, moving on to the A tier, we got Spider-Man 3. There's not really much I want to say that hasn't been said yet. Spider-Man 3 is just, it's a special movie. There's some good, there's some bad, but at the end of the day, I would rewatch this movie any day. Like I have a hell of a time watching it. And there's just some movies that are like that. There's some movies that, have scenes that you could objectively say, yeah, this scene's probably dog shit. But at the end of the day, I'm smiling and giggling the whole time. So clearly it's giving me some value and entertainment. So gotta put that in the A tier. Spider-Man Far From Home, I put in A tier, mainly because this is probably the movie where I really started to take Tom Holland's Spider-Man a bit more seriously. Mainly the third act. I think the third act is really, really what saves this movie. I think the build up towards it, it's all cute and fun. Them going to, across the country. I thought that was actually one of my favorite parts about the movie. It's so refreshing to see Spider-Man in a place that's not New York. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I thought that was really nice to see in this movie. So that was fun. But, there are some things that I'm like, I can kind of do without, this and that. Like there's the scene where he's being framed by the one kid that survived the blip, to like, oh, he was messing with this one girl in this one room or whatever, and he's gonna tell MJ, and there's like this weird triangle thing. I could do without any of that stuff. I thought that stuff wasn't really that interesting, but I do like that MJ figures out who he is on her own, and I like that they didn't drag it out, this will they won't they thing. I think that resolution was really good, and just the way that he buckles up and shows initiative and really just comes into his own at the end of the movie. I think that was like, okay, I think I really like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. That was the first time I really felt that, because every other time it just felt like he was a fun character to have around. He's make some funny jokes here and there. So I'm gonna put that in A tier for that. And now we move on to S tier. I have a lot in my S tier, as you can see.
That's everything, pretty much.
So starting at the bottom, I have Into the Spider-Verse. I really like this movie a lot. I think the artistic aspect of it carries a lot of the movie. I think the story is great. I think if it wasn't, I think the animation really makes the story feel a bit better than it actually is, which might be a hard take. I think the movie, like, I still have it in my S tier. Like, I'm just saying, in the echelon of the S tier, it's at the bottom of the S tier. So it's still a goated movie. It's just, especially after seeing Across the Spider-Verse, it's like that one has a truly like the story is truly like a huge step above the first one for me. I think it has a great resolution, great payoff, but would you say the story is unpredictable? Like, I wouldn't say that. I think I definitely, you kind of know where things are gonna go. It's just it's executed so well that you don't really care about how simplistic in nature the plot is or the story is, So for that reason, it's at the bottom of the S tier, at the echelon of the S tier. But it's still amazing. I love the movie. So good. Then we have Spider-Man 2 right above it. I think Spider-Man 2, the interpretation of Doc Ock, the power of the sun in the palm of my hand, I think that entire dynamic I thought was done super, super well. At the time, it was my favorite villain until They did it a little. Well, I'll get into what my favorite villain is now later. But at the time, I thought Doc Ock was my favorite villain that I'd seen in a superhero movie. So for that reason, I really enjoyed it because I thought it was one of the first superhero movies to really have the villain be compelling and sympathetic in ways that a lot of superhero movies at the time weren't. They were boiled down to being just bad, just evil, mustache twirling, like villain of the week type of deal. But you really felt for the relationship because you saw them as friends first, and then things started to go south, and you really cared about this guy. And what I liked about it is, by the end of the movie, he's kind of redeemed in a way. It's not, just he dies. Like that wasn't the resolution. It was, he literally sacrifices himself and has a noble, end. So I thought that was really cool. And there's just amazing scenes in this movie. The train scene, the fight scene on the side of the building. There's like amazing, stuff in this movie. I really love it. Then we have Across the Spider-Verse. If I were to revise this list, I would put it one notch above where it's at right now. But I have it in third here currently. But yeah, if I were to revise it, I'd put it one notch above. But Across the Spider-Verse, that movie is fantastic. The only reason that it's not a little higher is there's a third movie that's got to come out. And when that third movie comes out, it could heavily sway where all three of these movies move as far as the Spider-Verse trilogy. So for that reason, it's kind of just teetering, right? It could shoot up to the top of S tier. It could, stay where it's at. It could go lower. I don't know. It depends on how this payoff is in the third movie, because with the middle movie to a trilogy, a lot of the impact really, weighs on that third movie hitting. So for that reason, I'm just in the air of how I feel. But I know that's a hell of a movie. I can tell you that for a fact. Artistically, amazing. I mean, there's really not much that hasn't been said. It's just fantastic. So much fan service. When I was watching the movie in the theater, I truly felt like I was watching history in the making. I was like, this is like y'all thought the first movie changed animation. This shit made me redefine what animation even is. I didn't even know it could be this. So
yeah, that movie's peak. I think it'll forever be peak.
For sure. Unless the third one throws, I don't know. But hopefully
I don't think it can throw that hard. I legitimately do not think, like, 'cause even if it's a bad movie, I doubt it could throw hard enough to like retroactively spoil the other two.
Maybe it's mainly the thematic principles that the second movie goes hard on. Like the themes are really hardly emphasized in the second movie. So if those themes aren't paid off in a way in the third one that I feel respects what the second one was doing, I would feel like it makes the second one worse. But I trust everyone involved. Yeah. I don't, for a second think they're gonna fail. So, all right, and then we have No Way Home. I agree with a lot of what you said. With the movie not, if you take the nostalgia out, it's just a whatever movie that doesn't make any sense. It's just a congealed mess of things on screen. But I gotta be on. No Way Home is probably in the top 3 theater experiences I have ever had. Period. And I go to the movies a lot. That movie,
you do.
That movie was something else. That experience, I cried like 3 times in that movie. On 3 different occasions. It wasn't like I cried here and then like 2 minutes later I cried again. No, it was like 3 completely different moments for 3 completely different reasons I cried. And moments that like they weren't even sad crying. It was like there were moments that was just happy crying. I can't believe what I'm seeing. I'm crying like it was just a natural raw reaction that the movie pulled out of me that I think is only possible with something like this. I think nostalgia is just so powerful. Whenever there's something so special to you and a movie, just dives in and pulls that out of you, it's just like, man, it ain't nothing like it. There's literally nothing better. So that movie's just magical. So many nice things I could say about it. And then we have the original Spider-Man where it all started. I think this movie it has flaws, but even the flaws I love. Even the random jump scares for some fucking reason that are in the movie. I love those. I love, Green Goblin pretending to be an old woman in a burning building to, you know, get the jump on Spider-Man and sleep and put him to sleep. I love the hang glider scene at the end of the movie where he's like, "Oh," and then the camera like zooms into his face as he gets impaled in the most
Yes.
goofy way
Godspeed,
possible.
Spider-Man.
I love the human spider and all the goofy, like, there's just so much in this movie that I love. I think Norman is that character is something that by all means should not be something we should ever take seriously. It should be a performance that we laugh at and think it's dog shit. But something about Willem Dafoe and his cadence and the way that he delivers those lines in that movie, you believe it. You believe that he sacrificed everything for that damn job when he says that shit. You believe
You know
it.
how much I sacrificed?
He's 100%, bro. When he's talking to himself in the mirror, it's like I believe it, man. This guy's going through shit. Like,
Or like even that speech he gives Spider-Man, like after like they fight for a bit, and he's like, "Oh yeah, the city loves you, for now, but the one thing they love more than like a hero is seeing a hero fail and all that." Like, and like even the way he moves, how he like just casually like walks up to him, leans against him, is all that was an amazing scene.
yeah. Honestly, it's just Willem Dafoe, I think, is a big reason why this is at the top of my S tier. I think his portrayal of that character will forever be goated to me, and I think he makes that movie a million times more enjoyable. His everything, it's just in my opinion, that movie I would not change a single thing about it, and that's why it's in the S tier. I would take it flaws and all, and as is. I love it so much. It's amazing. So that's my tier list. That's been your tier list. So yeah, let's, I guess, divert focus now to the games, and we're just gonna talk about the games in general before we get to 2018, because me and you both. Well, I don't know if you replayed it. Your memory's pretty fresh. I
Oh no,
replayed
no, I didn't, but
You
that
didn't?
game is
Okay, well,
in
it's
my
fine.
head. I
Yeah.
can list off everything in that game
Okay.
verbatim.
Yeah, so I replayed 2018, so we're gonna talk about that in a second. But before we do that, I just want to talk about the games in general. So, Spider-Man is very interesting because there's been a lot of superhero games, over time. But something I've noticed is Spider-Man and maybe Batman too, to an extent, have always been the characters. You could also throw Superman in here too, although no one ever listens to Superman fans. But these have been the characters that have always had an audience or desire for a video game for those characters,
Mm.
which is rare. You'll hear people say they want, an X-Men game, but the vocal, like the voice around that is very minimal compared to the amount of people that crave Spider-Man games or crave Batman game. People really want those games. So it's always interested me, specifically why that's the case. And I think it's because the character itself lends a lot to a very interesting gameplay loop that you just wouldn't be able to do with any other character. So I guess we're just gonna start with, as far as games go, which is your favorite, why it's your favorite, and why do you think Spider-Man specifically works so well in the medium of games?
Gotcha. Okay, so to make this a lot more interesting, I'm actually going to exclude Insomniac's titles.
Fair.
Because if it would immediately just be, well, what's the latest Insomniac game? But so mine is actually a tie, and it's a tie for two reasons, right? So both of these games I'm about to list were games I grew up playing. Both of them have really like fun aspects to them that I really like, and one of them actually did the Spider-Verse before a lot of things did the Spider-Verse, which actually I found that out recently while doing like or watching like a documentary about it. But first game, right? Ultimate Spider-Man. I'm gonna keep this really quick, really simple, really to the point. The art style in that game, even though it doesn't hold up because of the render distance or whatever, Treyarch did an amazing job with the comic book art style and making it look like you're just playing a comic. It was amazing. Even the way cutscenes happened, how there's one cutscene where you're chasing down Rhino, and Spider-Man's like quipping, saying like some goofy joke, making a joke about, oh, is that a rhinoceros horn? Are you happy to see me? And midway through the joke, Rhino stands up and Peter sees how tall he is and he actually gets scared, and Rhino backhands you and you fly off the page through like three different pages, and like that's really really cool. Being able to play as Venom goes without saying. It was awesome. Being able to throw cars, snap people's spines, eat people. um and then having the unique mechanic of the suit constantly draining Eddie's life force, so your health bar is constantly going down. So you're, even in boss fights, it became like this like chess match almost, where you're fighting the boss and you're trying to avoid taking damage, but you're also trying to find moments to run off and eat a civilian so you can heal back up and then go back into the fight. Specifically against Electro, me and you, we clown Electro's dialogue in this game, like
Yeah.
the hell and back. Just, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. That fight was super cool to me because you're fighting Electro's Venom. Electro knocks Venom aside. Spider-Man shows up, gets knocked out, and now Venom and Electro, both Spider-Man villains, are fighting each other to stop the other from killing Spider-Man. And there's even a scene where I might be like reading too much into this, but it seems almost like Eddie is like in there and trying to like fight the suit almost, like he still cares about Peter, because after you beat Electro, Venom's like looking down at Peter's like unconscious body, and instead of like trying to eat him, like, or having tendrils come out or being like super vicious like you would expect, he kind of just slowly reaches down to try and pick him up, and then Shield shows up. And even before that, when Electro's like, oh, time to fry me a spider, Venom jumps out, but instead of Venom's voice you hear Eddie say mine. And like, it's little details like that that were really really sick. One thing that they definitely can't do now is they had like the Fantastic Four show up, so you could go to the Baxter Building and race Johnny Storm. Wolverine just casually showing up, Shield agents showing up. Like, these are a lot of things that can't really happen due to licensing issues, which I kind of hate.
Yeah. It feels
But
like
no,
there was back then Marvel wasn't like, I mean, that was before they sold all their IP. I mean, they were about to go bankrupt and they just started selling all their IP to different, companies. And at the time, it was more of a, oh, if you have the Marvel license, you have the Marvel license. You can use anyone in the whole pantheon of characters. So a lot of the games we were getting were amazing. I mean, like the Ultimate Alliance games and things of that nature. We were just getting these games with ensemble casts that we just can't really see anymore today, which really sucks because DC isn't like that. You can get a DC game with all the heroes in, because it's all under one umbrella.
yeah. Um, and actually, like, kind of like leading back into that was some of the other characters we saw that were exclusive to the Ultimate Universe. Like, for example, I don't know how familiar you are with the Ultimate Universe, but Green Goblin in the Ultimate Universe is much different than the traditional Green Goblin. When he takes the serum, he basically becomes the Hulk almost. Like, he gets like huge and like legitimately green, and he can like throw fireballs. But one thing is, he's like
Isn't that just
actually insane.
Hobgoblin? Or are
Uh,
they the same?
I think Hobgoblin in like 616, like in the most continuities, is that. But I remember pretty specifically in the Ultimate Universe, Norman becomes like that. He's like
Oh,
throwing fireballs. He's doing this like maniacal, like almost Joker laugh. Um, I will say the voice acting in Ultimate Spider-Man is not great, but you know what? It adds to the
there's a
charm.
charm, yeah.
Yeah, no, it adds to the charm. I love it. There was tons of like really cool like one-off fights. Like, you're playing as Venom. I think his name's Beetle. I don't know. He has like an Iron Man-esque suit and he's flying around, and you have to fight him in this warehouse. So there's nobody for you to eat. So every little bit of damage you take is like way more impactful. The fight with Silver Sable as Venom was awesome. The final fight between Venom and Carnage was really cool. It's not the final fight, but it's like the penultimate fight where you fight Carnage and you eat the symbiote off of Peter and like throw Peter aside, and you eat the Carnage symbiote, and then he gets the white spider across his chest. It's awesome. I loved it. Um, but yeah, no, great game. And the game it's tied with is Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. That game from the documentary I watched did the Spider-Verse concept before it was like a super big thing. I think they might have like legitimately been the first. Game has a lot of issues, but some of the pros, right? You get I think his name's Josh Keaton. He's the dude who did the voice of
Yeah,
Spectacular
he's in the
Spider-Man. You
cartoon,
get
right? Yeah.
yeah. You get him and he plays Ultimate Peter and he has like the symbiote suit on and his gameplay is pretty fun. You get Neil Patrick Harrison doing Amazing Spider-Man. And
Neil Patrick Harris.
Harris, yeah, not Harris.
Okay,
Why do I
okay.
keep saying Harrison? Uh, and you also get I don't remember the other two voices. They were less memorable. But you get 2099 and you get Noir. And each Spider-Man gets I think 3 levels to themselves, and each one they fight a unique boss with like a unique gimmick. So the first one you get, Amazing Spider-Man, you fight Kraven the Hunter, and there's like this one really cool scene where you're looking through like so you're running through like an area, and the camera switches to be through the lens of a sniper scope. And like there's like a reticle that fills up and then he shoots. And so you're constantly timing your dodges to like, avoid his shots and get him to like shoot things in the environment to help like make a path for you while also fighting, Kraven's hunters. That was really cool. Ultimate Spider-Man, he gets like a few pretty bad levels. Like Electro's a really horrible level. But he also fights Carnage and that was okay. And he fights Deadpool, who was voiced by Nolan North.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some really good voice just actors, really good voice actors. 2099 I think was like the least memorable. Like he fought like Scorpion and Hobgoblin and Doc Ock, but they were like the future versions, so they were like not too great. And then Noir, I think he had one of the coolest. It was done poorly, but it was a cool concept of like it was a whole stealth section. And actually, fun fact, I didn't know this until, or I didn't know it at the time, but I was playing it. I found out that Noir has, I think, one of the worst versions of Uncle Ben dying. So he doesn't just get shot by somebody. Vulture in this universe is like actually like a cannibal, and
Hmm.
Uncle Ben, I think he walks in on Hammerhead or the Green Goblin of this universe. Like they're all like mobsters. He overhears them, or he tries like I forget the context, but he's like in their presence and they see him as like, oh, we got to deal with him. And so Norman just lets Vulture eat Uncle Ben alive, and Peter like is like hiding nearby, and he just watches because he's like, oh, what can I do? And so that makes Vulture a lot worse. But no, the game did a lot of really unique stuff, and even had Stanley doing like voiceovers for the in between chapters.
Oh, that's cool.
Um, yeah, but I mean, the game was very basic, very cookie cutter, but it was fun. I liked it. So yeah, those are my two.
Cool, cool. Well, I'm a bit basic. My favorite is, like you said, Ultimate Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2018. But I think if we're talking gameplay, it's 2018, obviously.
Yeah.
But if we're talking everything else, it's Ultimate Spider-Man. I think.
Yeah, the music too. I forgot the
Yep.
music.
I think the music, the art style, just the world and how, because like in Spider-Man 2018 they dipped their toe in it, but there's obviously limitations, right? You see the Avengers Tower, you see the Sanctum Sanctorum, you see these things, but there's nothing outside of that that, gives it any real substance. I think it would be so cool if Doctor Strange could show up for like a little side quest line, or, you could see one of the Avengers just around and do quests with I feel like that would go such a long way to making the world feel bigger than what it actually is. And that's something that Ultimate Spider-Man has, Like you said, you see the Baxter building, you raise Johnny Storm, you got Wolverine, all these characters feel like they exist. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is just a Spider-Man story in a Spider-Man world. Kind of like how a lot of Batman films are very much, this is Batman and Gotham City. There's no Metropolis. There's no anyway. It's just this. Like this is clearly everything. It doesn't feel like it's a part of anything. So
Yeah.
I kind of
And
wish. I kind of wish that
go
Marvel
ahead.
games like had that. It kind of sucks that that's not a thing we get anymore.
Yeah, and that's actually touching on that with the whole how DC and Marvel are completely different and how they own their IPs rather. Um, Batman Arkham Knight of all things does a really good job of like doing that and making the world feel lived in and making it feel like there's other people. Like if you just go around like in Arkham Knight and listen to like the random
Radio
goons
logs and stuff
conversations.
too.
Not even just that, but like just the conversations like the enemies have, like when you're just sneaking around, they'll be like, "Oh, good thing that freak from Metropolis isn't here," and stuff like that, or be like, "Oh, you heard about that one guy from whatever city." Like, just casually mention other heroes, and even
Mm-hmm.
in universe, the reason they're not coming to Gotham is both because one, Scarecrow says, "Oh, if anyone else shows up, I'm doing whatever," but also everyone knows, hey,
He's got
Batman
it.
controls Gotham. Yeah,
He
it's
got that
his
shit on
thing.
lock.
He wouldn't like, yeah, it's literally, if he wanted us to help, he'd say it. Otherwise, he's good. Like, so it's like a respect thing. So with Batman, like those games, it's like, yeah, it makes sense why no one else shows up, and you're never thinking, well, why didn't Superman just come in? Because like then it wouldn't be a game, obviously. But
Yeah.
and with Spider-Man, just it kind of sucks that you see Avengers Tower, and then there's just you just get a quote of, yeah, I think they're on the West Coast or something. But it's like there's a huge thing going on in the city, and it's like, one of you could show up, like Tony or Banner, somebody, even Cap,
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's a good segue because we're gonna get into Spider-Man 2018 here for a bit. So I just replayed the game on PC for the first time. Beautiful game to look at, might I say. Once you see this game running with all the settings cranked up and with your FOV like high, and you see like this wide angle, like it makes everything look faster and crazy. But yeah, I kind of ran through the game mainlined and just so I had more up to date opinion on it, because I don't think I've beaten this game literally since maybe 2019. Like that was probably the last time I seriously tried to play it again. So now that I have more updated opinion and I'm fresh on it, uh, we're just gonna talk about that game as a whole. What we thought, Insomniac did right, why that game, hit so hard when it did, and I guess what our expectations are of the sequel. So, where I want to start with, particularly, is while I do think, like I said earlier, I think Tobey Maguire is my favorite Spider-Man. That is, if we're talking movies. I think my favorite Spider-Man is Yuri Lowenthal's interpretation in this game. I think he invokes such a positive outlook in nature that feels really genuine and not cheesy. I feel like he's just genuinely a very positive guy. And no matter what happens to him, this guy, he gets evicted from his apartment. He loses his job. He loses his mentor, loses his aunt. And even through all of that, well, for the most part, through all of that, he still remains very positive and still has a positive outlook on everything, even to the point where, this guy that, seemingly took everything, from him that he believed in, he was for a second willing to give him another chance. But, obviously, Otto messed that up, trying to be all coy and cocky with his and now you'll know I'll be able to hold your secret. It's like, get the
I won't tell anybody.
this
Sorry,
guy,
buddy.
bro. And I think for that reason, he's kind of shot up to being my favorite because he has a lot of qualities that I feel like invoke, Spider-Man. Like this is it is a get more Spider-Man than this. And I think just in a game in that medium, you can kind of show more, of the character, right? In the movies, we get bits and pieces. You get little scenes here and there, but there's a lot of missions and stuff in the game that I remember, really vividly. Like one of my favorite missions in the game is when you go and investigate this warehouse with Anthony Davis.
Jefferson Davis.
Yeah, or Jefferson Davis. My
Yeah, I was
bad.
gonna say-
Anthony Davis. That's a basketball
Doesn't
player or
matter.
some shit, right?
I
My
was like,
bad.
Anthony. I was like, what are we talking about?
My bad. Jeff, my bad. Okay, he's helping Jeff investigate. And I thought that was really cool. I think it's just really cool in general to see him help, the law enforcement. I think that's something that it makes him feel more a part of the community, feel more less like a vigilante and more like, you know, this friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You know, everyone sees him and they all recognize him and they're all, you know, they all like that he's here. It's like Santa Claus. It's like if Santa Claus was real, we wouldn't, you know, hate Santa Claus. We'd be like, oh, there's this cool, jolly guy that just comes once a year and gives us free shit. Cool. He's just, it's like that, right? So I feel like the way they depict him in the smaller moments, you know, like, you know, you have like scenes that shouldn't add up to anything, but they somehow do, you know, where he saves this one girl who's getting pursued by like four dudes, and then he saves her, and then he directs her to the soup kitchen, and then later on you see her in the game at the soup kitchen, and you know she feels at home there, and then throughout the game she gets updated dialogue, so you kind of see how, you know, she's doing and stuff like that. And even the relationship with Miles, I like how that's fostered. It's not something that just kind of happens. It's kind of built up throughout the game, and it feels more organic.
Mhm.
And yeah, it really doesn't matter who he interacts with. Everyone he interacts with, he treats them with kindness, and he doesn't necessarily paint people with a broad brush. You know, everyone is kind of neutral until they backstab him or do something wrong him in some way. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's my thoughts. We're gonna get into the nitty gritty details about specifics in the story, but how do you feel specifically about Insomniac's general take of Peter
okay.
and their first go around at a Spider-Man game?
So, okay, so I love their interpretation. It goes without saying. I That's a super popular opinion. It's literally like the coldest take you can have is Insomniac did a good job with Peter. You know, some people don't like how tech he is, and that's fair. I think the one gadget he does have that like feels out of place is the suspension matrix. That's the only thing in the game you could say doesn't feel like Spider-Man. Everything else, it's like web bombs, yeah, different kinds of webs, sure, electric webs, sure. Even the concussive blast, when you're getting your flash drive for the web bombs, literally one of the files says it's like a prototype of like shockers thing, like it's like he analyzed shockers like gauntlets, and like that's like something he came up with. So all that feels in universe, and like yeah, that's something Peter would do. But the random I throw this out and you just lift, I'm like, okay, that's stupid. Like that's a little
Yeah.
goofy. But I really love his character, and one of the things that the game like does a little more subtly, and that made me super hyped for two. And you know, once they revealed Venom, and it gave me super hyped for it, is how Peter blames himself. So he stops Kingpin, but that creates the power vacuum for Martin Lee, and he blames himself for that. He blames himself for some things more directly. He blames himself for is not being there for Otto, not being there to help him test everything, not being there to stop him from becoming Doc Ock, for helping develop the arms. All these little things he blames himself for, and you can tell he does from some of his dialogue and some of the things he says. But one of the biggest things he blames himself for is Aunt May's death.
Hmm.
And one of the things you could argue is that if Peter had won a single fight, like if he had just won any one fight in the game differently, like if any one of those fights had gone differently, any of the big main fights, Aunt May would still be alive, because there's dialogue at the end of the game where right after you have that cutscene with MJ, and you're going to build the anti-ox suit. If you like drag your feet getting there, you get a call from May, or not May, from MJ, and she's saying, "Hey, it's not looking good. You either have to get the anti-serum in within the hour, or you need to get here within the hour." And when he gets the anti-serum, Dr. Michaels, aka soon to be Morbius, maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, he says they need a day to finish the cure. And so if Peter had gotten the cure when he was fighting Doc Ock and Martin Lee, if like he hadn't got knocked out by Otto and gotten taken back, she probably would have survived. If he hadn't lost the fight on the raft, she would definitely survive, because Otto would have never really, like, if you go back through every major fight in the game, if he had won any one of those fights, you could argue that Aunt May would still be alive. And so I know for a fact he's blaming himself about that too. And I'm
Mm.
really like, that's just a really, really interesting point to have, especially going into a game where Venom is going to be the antagonist. And in most continuities and most iterations of Venom, he amplifies and like,
His emotions and
yeah,
things
he
that are
amplifies
weighing
your
on him.
emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they also like depending on the continuity, or like the iteration of Venom, they kind of feed off each other. So let's say, for example, with in the post credit scene where we see Harry has the symbiote on. Let's say, for example, Venom is just stewing in those emotions. Like, let's say Venom's mad about being locked up, and in turn, Harry's mad about, oh, my dad, or, whatever their relationship, blah, blah, whatever, any petty thing. And they're just constantly in a cycle of just negativity, constantly. The second it touches Peter and has all of Peter's negativity adding to, they're both just going to be in an infinite loop of making each other worse. And so it's like, that's what makes me so excited for Venom, because there's one comic run, or I think most runs now that I think about it, where one person who's just good or like even half decent puts the symbiote on, and now Venom's a good guy. And it's like, that's all it took, was just someone to be super positive, or like, give the symbiote good experiences, or like kind of like, it's almost like a child. You're like,
Yeah.
if you nurture it the right way, boom. And so I'm really excited with that. I also love Insomniac's Peter, them skipping all of the stuff we already know. Yeah, we know Uncle Ben died. We know he got bit by a spider. We know he went through a few awkward years. We know he had some of his like core villains develop. And while that's a really good thing, I also think it's a bad thing, because I think, because yeah, we were just talking about canon events and how it doesn't need to be set in stone. But one of the few things I think Peter kind of does need to have is that wake up call moment with being Spider-Man. And the one wake up call thing he typically has in the comics is Gwen dying. And since the Green Goblin hasn't become a thing yet in the Insomniac universe, we can assume he never dated anybody named Gwen Stacy, and she never died. So he never had that moment of, oh, I've really got to be on my, I've really got to be on my P's and Q's. I got to take this seriously. And I've seen some people say it's like a detriment to his character. They're like, if you haven't had Gwen Stacy die, your Spider-Man isn't blah blah blah, whatever.
Such a weird thing to say.
Yeah, it is a weird take. But it also got me thinking, like, are they just saying this Spider-Man was just serious from the beginning, or like serious enough to
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine to have as a take, but I don't know. I do like how you touched on him being seen less as a vigilante. But for me, I think, yeah, his scene with Jefferson Davis was like a nice touch. I feel like him working directly with Captain Watanabe the entire game was
That's
a
also
really
good.
big, really like core part of it, and that just it was good. But yeah, no, love that Peter, love him.
Yep. I think Insomniac did a great job when it comes to the story and it comes to character and building that. I think all of that was done pretty marvelously. But there is some issues, I have to say, with this game. There's a lot of things that I just did not remember when I played it this time. I was like, what? This is a thing in the game? But yeah, there's like a lot of weird things that I'm just like, I'm not sure I understand the design choice here. So there's a point, I think it's either once you get into Act 3 or maybe a little before that, but there's a point where Silver Sable and her people like just straight up take over the whole city. And I kind of don't like that the whole city is like on lockdown or like under this new like regime or of sorts, and then like they redid like the whole city where now there's like a bunch of dirt and smut all on the ground, and there's tents and everyone's homeless, and there's like I was like, what the hell happened? Like it almost feels like it happened overnight, and you're swinging through the city before, like, in the beginning of the game everything is all beautiful and you got this nice skybox and, oh, a crime here, let me go do this real quick. Towards the end of the game, when you're swinging through the city, you got snipers on every rooftop, all aiming at you, and it's like, it is chaos. The whole city is chaos.
Really like that. I really like that, though. Like, it shows how far things have fallen. Like, Peter gets beat by the Sinister Six. He has like a bunch of broken bones and all this other stuff. He gets on the phone with Yuri, and she's like, "Oh, you snuck out of the hospital like early. They said you need rest. All these broken bones, like all blah blah whatever." And then she goes, yeah, Norman Osborn's blaming you because, oh, you're the easiest scapegoat. And since he hired Sable, Sable's after you now. It makes the whole city feel like a war zone. And like, it makes it feel like Spider-Man lost control of the city. Like, he's sitting there thinking like, man, if I just let Wilson Fisk get away, none of this wouldn't happen. And like,
I think it just happens too fast. It's
Yeah,
mainly
no, that
honestly,
definitely,
it's
yeah.
mainly the jarring, like the city looked like this, and then like one cutscene plays, and now the city just looks like that. It is completely different. Like I would rather it have been like one district or one main area that changed that looked like that. I mean, like you could still say, the Sable people are around and they're hunting you, but like as someone that has just played it and the amount of these like Sable guards and people on almost every rooftop as you're just like you can't swing down a block without getting shot at by a sniper. It is like kind of absurd how many of them that are like around. I think
Yeah,
from a design standpoint, it's a little much. I think they could have toned that down a bit more because it literally looks like New York is unrecognizable. Like at that point in the game, it literally everything went. It's a shithole. Like there
it
is
just looks like the Division. It's
yeah.
just
It literally does. Like I was like baffled at how like to shit everything. I was like, this is kind of insane.
and
Um,
I feel like it would have worked if they just like made it a little more clear how long Peter was out, because it could just be like you could just assume that he was out for like a few hours, but they should have said, "Oh no, he was like knocked out after that fight with the Sinister Six for like a week or like 5 days, 4 days," and that would make it a little more believable that yeah, with Sable and the Sinister Six running around, yeah, things would go bad pretty quick. But yeah, no, I just think they could have
yeah,
done that a
they
little better.
definitely could have. Like it would have gone a long way to have like some sort of cutscene showing him in the hospital bed or something of that nature, and then you see like I don't know MJ's like sitting with him, and then you see on the TV like all this shit going down,
Yeah,
while he's there to give you some sort of perspective of like, oh, all this is happening, you know, while he's been here for X amount of time, right? It's just very jarring to go from one cutscene and then once the cutscene's over, everything is gone to shit. It was just it was a little jarring. I kind of wish it kind of built to that better.
mhm.
And I want to say gameplay wise, you really notice this, especially like after playing like Miles Morales too, is um when this game came out, you really couldn't think of many things to improve. Like it felt like, oh, the game's hey, they kind of nailed it. I don't know what else they can improve. And then you play Miles Morales, and you're like, oh, shit, it turns out there's a lot that can be improved. So we are obviously know what Miles improved, but as far as going into Spider-Man 2, gameplay wise, what would you say are some features that you really hope are improved?
Well, this is one. Well, can I use the gameplay trailer as like a I guess like a
Yeah, yeah,
baseline?
yeah,
Okay.
you can.
So one thing the gameplay trailer we saw uh definitely like showcased was the combat's going to be a lot more in depth because it's going to be like a parry, and there's also going to be a wider enemy variety, because I know you definitely notice it in base Spider-Man has it the worst. The DLC does it a little better, and then Miles Morales does it a little better than that. The enemy variety was, for the most part, here's guys with guns, guys with melee weapons, and guys who can't be webbed up, and that was about it. And then the DLC added like the base game also had like jetpack guys, but they were like non-issues. And then the DLC added like heavy minigunners and like a few other like little kind of jobber enemies that were like a little more you know difficult to deal with. But I really hope they add more variety, because actually a perfect example is Batman Arkham, like the Arkham series. There's the basic enemies where all you have to do is just tap counter and then boom, they're dealt with if they swing at you. Then they add melee enemies where you have to like time your like counters. You have to hold the counter button and hold back to like dodge backwards as they slash it at you with a knife. There's other characters you straight up can't counter. Certain enemies can do certain attacks that make it so you don't have to counter. You have to either throw a batarang or jump over them. And like it makes combat a lot more varied and a lot more engaging than just mash, attack, occasionally hit dodge, knock them up in the air if you want, and then do, because like it's still fun to style on people, but like I'd be
Yeah,
lying if I said the game's difficult even on the hardest difficulty. Like
yeah.
as long as you're paying even the slightest bit of attention, you're fine.
That's one of my biggest worries is that the game turns out to be too easy. I really because it looks like they're just giving you a lot, and from what I've seen from the enemies you fight, it doesn't seem like they have been given much to compensate. But granted, we've mainly seen him fight Craven's jobber guys. There's like these little dog things, which are interesting. But yeah, I'm just really hoping that even though the combat is expanded, I hope that there are enemies designed to truly give you a challenge. Like doing fancy cool combos and things of that nature is cool, and I do like that, but I do want to be challenged for sure. And another thing I really really want to be better is the boss fights, because I think in 2018, just replaying it, a lot of those boss fights are not interesting. They are so basic. Like
They're
there's
very
not really.
gimmicky.
Yeah, they are. They feel like, which is kind of funny to say, they feel like a lot of the PS2 generation boss fights were like, oh, I just do this thing 3 times and I win. Like I do
Yeah,
it
no,
once, then he's like doing his thing. I just kind of dodge around for a bit. Oh, all right, it's just that opening. All right, I do it again. Oh, now I gotta wait for a bit. Oh, do it again. All right, I won. There it is. Like it's so formulaic. Like you immediately know what needs to be done within the first 30 seconds of seeing the boss, and it's just I kind of wish that there was some thinkers. Like there's some ones where you're like, okay, how do I beat this guy? What's the goal here? I wish there were ones that were more challenging in that aspect, or just ones that have multiple ways to beat them. They all have one way. You're not gonna find some secret way or use some secret thing that they didn't necessarily design you to be able to do. There's only one way to beat them, and it's pretty easy and simple what it is. So
yeah.
yeah, I really wish or hope that the boss fights are much more interesting.
And another thing too, with the boss fights is I think the best boss fight in the game is the Vulture and Electro fight. That fight was really good. But like aside from that, a lot of fights like they're just I don't know, like they're not it's not even just that they're gimmicky. It's that like they're fun, they're kind of fun the first time around, but even then like they're not really. Like Rhino and Scorpion, that fight just sucks.
Yeah,
Like
that
because
fight takes a year.
yeah, and not just that, but like Rhino and Scorpion's mechanics don't mesh well together at all to the point where like they're actively like so like Electro and Vulture is like such a strange well not strange, it's a perfect like parallel. So with Electro and Vulture, both of them are flying enemies, both of them have really good synergy. They're throwing stuff at you, you can throw Vulture stuff back at him, you can dodge, you can just swing up and punch him, whatever, and you're constantly able to shift back and forth between which one you're fighting. With Rhino and Scorpion, it's literally you have to use gadgets on Scorpion, and then you can just beat him up. And Rhino, he has to get to a certain point so you can drop something on him. But because of how Rhino like moves, he just charges towards you. It's like you're forced to just dodge that real quick, and then you can do it. But it's like it almost like it actively encourages you to just web up Scorpion and then deal with Rhino and then deal with Scorpion after, or just deal with Scorpion and then deal. Like there's not like that same sort of like gameplay with Vulture and Electro. You can just bounce between them. You can I want to fight Electro for a little bit, fight Vulture, and then they can hit each other, and it's like a whole thing where like
Yeah.
Electro, yeah, and that was really
How
cool.
cool
Like,
would it
even the
be if they worked
conversations.
together? Like how cool would it be if like they were doing team up attacks and shit on you? Like
Yeah, like Scorpion shoots like his acid on something, and Rhino throws that at you, and it splatters everywhere. That would be sick. But no,
yeah,
it's
they
just
truly feel like two separate boss fights that were just plopped next to each other, and it was like, all right, fight them both at the same time.
actually I can prove that's what happened because you fight Scorpion. No, I can actually prove it because you fight Scorpion by himself in like that dream sequence. And that's
Yeah,
that's a
that is
fight.
true.
So it's like you fight him once, and now it's like, oh no, fight him again, but this time we'll just have Rhino, making it a little more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely my biggest gripe. Is please have engaging and really cool boss fights. That's something I really, really hope that they have in the game.
And actually, on the topic of Rhino, so it's like it's very weird to go from Spider-Man 2018 where he solos the Sinister Six in like 2v1s. And then you go to Spider-Man Miles Morales where he gets bodied by Rhino for plot. Like it's just like and like when he's fighting the Sinister Six in Spider-Man 20, he still has broken like ribs and all that. He has like 14 broken bones.
Yeah.
But now in Spider-Man 20 Miles Morales where he's like at his peak,
It's
he just
crazy
gets
you remember
bodied by
that.
Rhino. Yeah, no,
Exact
I
number
remember
of
so much.
bones.
Yeah, no, I remember so much from Spider-Man 2018.
Wow.
Like there's I don't know if you did the Tombstone side quest, but like that's a pretty
No,
fun boss
I
fight.
just literally mainlined. But I do remember the Tombstone stuff being pretty cool. The first time
Yeah.
when I played it.
And like it was really cool because that's more of what I wanted of there being a smaller time villain. Because you see him in the main story, he built something for Martin Lee, and that's it. And doing his side mission, it's yeah, he's doing this whole thing on the side that's super small time to the point where it makes you feel good about being a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And then you beat him, and even when you beat him, he's like really like charming about it. Like you beat him, and then like Spider-Man's like, oh, you're gonna, I don't suppose you'll stop, being a criminal now that I took away your invulnerability. And he goes, nah, that actually makes it better. And then he goes like, yo, now that I know I can die, oh, that makes it even cooler. And then like he even says like, oh, I like you when you swing away, and it's like, it's neat. I like seeing his smaller, I guess, or like some of his lesser rogues gallery
Yeah,
being presented.
very cool. So yeah, gameplay wise, that's definitely my biggest hope. Expectation wise, I think everything else they're probably gonna knock out apart. We know the game's gonna be fun. We know there's gonna be a lot of costumes, more costumes than we could ever hope for or imagine, and we know the game's gonna look good. So my only worry is those boss fights and of course the story. So let's talk about story wise. What are, I guess, name like 2 or 3 things that you could think of that you hope you see in this game. It could be anything, even if it's an Easter egg or whatever. Like, what is something that you're just like, oh my goodness, please, if this is in this game, like that'd be everything, you know?
Okay, so I'm gonna go on the list of things that I want. I don't care if like how likely they are to come up. These are just things I want. Anti Venom. You have Martin Lee. You have Venom. The pieces are there. Please. That's I want Anti Venom. Anti Venom is sick. It would be a really cool way of incorporating another symbiote. It would be a really cool way of just shining a spotlight on a symbiote that I feel like doesn't get nearly as much love as they deserve because like, everyone always focuses on Carnage and Venom, and like Carnage and Venom are cool, but there's so many cooler ones. Like Toxin is like Carnage's son, and he like wants to do good, but like he's Carnage's son, so like it goes without saying. Um, I want to see Wraith's storyline conclude in like a meaningful way because the whole because I know you said you didn't get a chance to brush up on the DLC,
Yeah, I'm gonna
but
replay
in
it.
the yeah, do you want a brief summary of it or?
Nah, I'm literally gonna replay it probably right after
Yeah.
we record this, so it's
Okay,
fine.
then yeah, you're gonna see some stuff that's gonna like that sets up Wraith. The main thing I would say is when you get to the third City that Never Sleeps DLC, I think it's called Turf Wars
Yeah,
or
that's what it's called.
yeah, yeah. When you get to the third one, there's a side mission you have to do because in the first two, Wraith or I guess Yuri's storyline is at the forefront, but in the third one, the third DLC, it's like her thing is like a side mission that sets up her, her thing in the next game. Uh, and so I want to see Wraith's storyline come to a meaningful and then unique conclusion. And this one's like a little off the wall, but I want to see Chameleon.
Ooh,
Chameleon is really cool, and um, the main reason I want to see him is because Arkham Knight did something similar with Hush, but they kind of wasted his potential. And I hope Spider-Man gets to do something similar to Chameleon, um, but different. Like there's this is one comic that I'm drawn to specifically about Chameleon, where Chameleon is literally fighting Spider-Man for like I think like 24 hours straight, and Peter's getting tired, and he wants to stop fighting so he can go rest, get something to eat, anything, but it's like he can't because like every like 4 people he sees turns out to be Chameleons. Like, oh lady, it's Chameleon. Oh, random guy on the street, Chameleon. Uh, Tony Stark, it was actually Chameleon. And like it's the point where Deadpool has to show up and stop Peter from like fighting an old lady, and then he's like, "No, you don't understand. This is a Chameleon." And Deadpool's like, "No, no, no, it's old lady." And then it turns out it was Chameleon. And so Deadpool knocks Peter out, puts on his suit to trick Chameleon, and then like he's like, "Don't worry, I'll take off the mask like before I kill him. Like, don't worry, I'm not gonna let people think Spider-Man killed him." And it's like when Chameleon's done right, he's a menace, and I want that.
interesting. Okay. Very good things. I hope all of them come true for you. Uh Mine's are a little simple. One is probably going to happen, I'll be shocked if it doesn't happen. But I really, really, really want a sneak peek or a cameo of some sort of Wolverine in this game. We know they're making the game. We know that he exists. I just want a taste of what their Wolverine looks like and feels like. Because I don't think they're getting Steve Bloom to play him. I think this will be one of the first times that Steve Bloom doesn't play Wolverine, if I'm not mistaken. Because, they like to get the mocapped actors for their characters. So they cast people that actually look more like the character. So I'm just so curious as to like what their take is going to be. What's he going to sound like? What's he going to look like? I really hope there's like some sort of cameo of some sort of him in this game. Whether it be, I don't think they would do a post-credit scene, because if they were, it would be teasing the next Spider-Man thing. But just something. I want some mention of some sort. And the other thing is, I'm really hoping that the Venom isn't just like one person. Like, I know the trailers are making us believe that it's Harry, but I want a Craven Venom as well. I think that would be so cool if Craven, tries to tame it, because he sees it as this like accomplishment thing, a beast that he can tame, and then he ends up taking the symbiote, and whether they end up becoming compatible in some way, or maybe it over powers him. I think that would make a way cooler final boss to me than if Harry was just the Venom final boss, or if just Craven by himself was just the final boss. I don't find that either of those things that interesting. I think if it was Venom latched on to Craven, I think that would be a much more interesting, I guess, end game for me. So I kind of hope that happens. I'm open to something different happening. Maybe they could do something that's even better that I'm not expecting. But me personally, I'm rooting for the Craven Venom as the final boss. But yeah, those are main two things. And I would also like some sort of them to do just something with the Avengers or Doctor Strange that's more meaningful than just the building being there. Like, it could be an NPC just mentioning their existence, or something. I don't know what, but just anything. I just want things to imply that this world isn't just Peter's spider world. Like, isn't it not weird that Craven looks on his little thing and all he sees is Spider-Man character? Like, it's like, if we're being realistic, there would be a bunch of fuckers here. Like, it wouldn't just be the spider people.
If he was looking for someone good to hunt, like, you think the Hulk would be like one of the first people. Oh man,
exactly.
I'd love to hunt that freak, that beast, that monstrosity. But no, it's just Spider-Man.
It just pulls me out a little bit. It's like, why even have it there? Like, at this point, it's literally just there. Like, it serves no purpose. It doesn't need to be there. So I feel like, give it some purpose. Have it there and feel more relevant in some way. I don't know. Yeah, those are things I want. Sorry, go ahead.
Gotcha. No. I was just gonna say, to add, well, not like add anything to it, because this is like speculation still. But about the whole wanting Venom to be more than just Harry. One thing that kind of makes that wish seem like it might be granted is, remember when they were talking about who the host would be, all they said was, it's not Eddie. But if you think about it, if you played Spider-Man, play Miles Morales, the post-credit scene, we've seen it on Harry. So wouldn't it make sense to just confirm that the symbiote is, or the host is going to be, So like, the fact that they're being so coy about it makes me think that, yeah, it's going to be a lot more than just one person at the very least. Like, it's just going to hop around. And it's going to, and plus, like, remember in like, I don't know, like, Venom looks huge in all the stuff we've seen of him.
He does.
Like, so
that's what makes me think it's Craven, bro. I think
it
is him. I hope. I really do.
And like, it's just, I don't know. And like, another thing too is, I don't know if you remember this like super vividly. I like still remember this to this day. In the gameplay trailer for Spider-Man 2, they're like, Craven's hunters are very actively trying to get Peter. They show up to his house. They're talking about, the beast could be anywhere. They show up to his house. In the scene where they're swinging across the river and Peter gets hit with missiles, they shoot nets at him, and when Miles saves him and they both fall in the water, they ignore Miles and say, over there, the one with the tendrils. It's almost like they're trying to get the symbiote for Craven.
Right.
And so, like, I don't know. I'm just saying that seems very specific. They want that Spider-Man. They don't care about Miles. They don't care about, and it's like
Yeah, these are good points. Very
I
good
would I
points.
would like I would like to see the symbiote hop around a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
because I think it'd be kind of. It's mainly because I just don't know much about this Harry guy, really, and as far as this interpretation goes. I mean, he spent the whole first two games in a tank, and all we had was like some of the worst side quests tied to him, and I was like I need they got to sell me on this guy. So if Harry was the final boss with Venom, that idea seems so underwhelming to me. I feel like having Craven be it is way more interesting.
well,
So
you know what I want to happen actually with Harry.
what?
So they've been stressing about how this game is going to be the most like emotional, right? Or like it's going to have like a huge emotional strain on Peter and Miles and everybody. What I think would be a much better use of Harry is imagine the symbiote finds its way to somebody else, right? Maybe Norman, maybe Craven, whoever. And you know how in the gameplay trailer they're talking about, oh, Harry's dying, and Kirk Connors is the only one who can help. What if the cure Kirk Connors creates for Harry just so happens to be a certain serum, a certain serum that allows him to utilize the prototype combat mask, that we saw in the first game. There's a certain
Yeah.
goblin formula. What if that's what drives Peter and Harry apart? Is he gets that goblin formula, obviously would make him act different, but also seeing Peter and potentially his dad fight, like that I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
and
Norman
people would love to
definitely
see.
seems set up for something like bigger. At the end of 2018, the amount of they play around with Norman without fully diving into the sinister shit he's up to. Like it feels like he's gonna do something big soon. Like, yeah, Harry, they want to show you Harry in the trailers and make you think, oh, it's all about Harry. But I'm really interested in what the hell Norman's doing. Like, I feel like he's up to something. So I would definitely love to see, you know, Norman play a bigger role in the sequel.
Yeah, no, most certainly. And one thing actually that kind of goes back into this is like because everyone saw the combat mask that you use to like find out about the hidden room with Harry and it, blah blah whatever. But one thing that I end up seeing in one of the breakdowns I was watching is if you look at the HUD of the combat mask, in the top left it says
Yeah.
like
Let's not
no,
get into all that. Let's not get into
oh,
all
okay,
that.
okay, okay,
I
my
didn't
bad.
dissect none of this. I don't. This is new info. I don't need that.
No,
We
it's from
got.
the
We
first
got.
game. It's from the first game.
Whatever. We got 2 days. We got 2 days.
Okay,
Save your deep dives. All right.
yeah.
Uh. So yeah. We went pretty long for this one.
Yeah, actually, we
My
did.
clock
Oh my
says it's about
God.
an hour and 53 minutes. So I think it's about time we wrap this up and say goodbye to the people. So this has been the Spider-Man episode. It's definitely my favorite episode so far that we've recorded. As far as what's on the docket, next week we are going to be doing Coraline as our Halloween episode, a little special, and then the week after that we're going to be taking another look at Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the first book, not the movie. We may do the movies at some point way later, but I think it's best if we just start doing episodes on the books. And I think they'll become more interesting because, granted, there's a lot of books now, so I don't think we'll do all the books, but maybe the first two or three, maybe. And if there's requests for more after, maybe we'll revisit the other ones too. But the episode 2 weeks from now will be about Diary of a Wimpy Kid, so that'll be a fun one because I haven't read those books literally since I was probably in middle school, so I don't really remember much of it, but I think that'll be fun. So yeah, go ahead and sign off for the people here.
If you guys couldn't tell, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Might start changing my socials to that, like make socials and change that. But no, thank you guys for listening. And yeah, I mean, hey, thank you for having me once again.
Yeah, it's a good episode. I think this will be one of our low-key bangers. Hopefully people flock in. This episode is going to go up literally hours before Spider-Man 2 goes live for everyone to play. So hopefully you listen to this while you're hyped for the game and you're sitting there waiting for your clock to run down at midnight. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys next week.
That a hero can save us. I'm not gonna stand